Excited to be approaching the launch of this new network that people like myself and Jason and many others have been working on for a few years now. So thank you to everybody for attending, and thank you to ACCESS for the opportunity to have this platform to inform others of this network. So as most people on this call may know, ACCESS is a new national consortium in pediatric cancer. And the Pediatric Cancer Models and Mechanisms Network that I will be talking about today is a new network that is supported through the cancer biology theme of ACCESS. ACCESS's goal as a network of researchers and healthcare providers and leaders and very importantly, persons with lived experience is to move towards equitable access to scientific advances, diagnostic tools, innovative therapies, with the goal to have the best outcomes and quality of life for children with cancer and their families. So I encourage everyone, if you have not already, to visit the website for ACCESS, ACCESS for Kids, cancer.ca. And I'd like to acknowledge that Canadian Institutes of Health Research have very generously funded this new consortium. So one of the initiatives that ACCESS is starting is around language. And when one thinks about ACCESS, a key barrier to access is often language, and in medical sciences, we often use terms and acronyms that are quite specialized and can be a barrier to understanding. So one of the tools that ACCESS is developing is an ACCESS glossary. So this will be terms and or acronyms that are related to pediatric cancer that should be included in this glossary. This glossary would be a one-stop shop for people who are reading specialized documents and maybe struggling with some of the terminology. So please, through this webinar, I'm sure there will be terms that I use that might be specialized and a barrier to understanding. So if those terms come up, please go to Slido, enter hashtag PCM webinar, and submit your suggestions for terms to be included in this glossary. So the poll will be open for the duration of the webinar, and you just have to click on that QR code. So on this slide, I see already 3 acronyms. So this is a very important initiative, and I highly encourage you to be involved. So the PCM network, this is a brief outline of the presentation that I'll give today, and that is to introduce you all to the vision, the mission for the PCM network, the objectives, to acknowledge the key stakeholders and partners who have gotten us to this spot. And then we are really hoping to, well, we are launching it, I guess, with this webinar. And key for its success is for preclinical investigators to register on the network, and for clinician and preclinical investigators to submit research questions. So a big goal of this seminar is to show how that can be done, and to discuss some of the benefits of registration for preclinical investigators and for clinician investigators. So the motivation of the PCM network, it really arose a number of years ago through a working group in the C17 Developmental Therapeutics Committee. And the working group was around preclinical studies and how can we support preclinical studies across Canada. And the creation and delivery modification of these precise treatments requires access to molecular and cellular biology knowledge, technologies, and expertise. And Canada is extraordinarily rich in this knowledge and expertise. We have international leaders in all areas of pediatric cancer research. but the the preclinical environment is not uniform, obviously, across Canada. And because of that, researchers and clinicians at different sites across the country will have different access to technologies and knowledge. And we thought, well, a way that we can encourage more preclinical studies, more translation, would be to create a network of researchers that could be accessed from anywhere in Canada and facilitate these sort of studies. And very early on, we were very fortunate to look for, who's doing this really well. And thankfully, one team that was doing this really, really well was in the rare disease space, the Rare Diseases Models and Mechanisms Network. And they have been extraordinarily supportive and collaborative, and they've enabled us to get where we are today. So the mission of the PCMM network is to create this national platform that will promote and enable preclinical studies. And the path to that mission is to first create a registry of experts, so to collect as much expertise as we can from across Canada and potentially around the world. And then when we have that expert registry, to create a matching program to match. It's basically like a dating service to match clinical or preclinical investigators with important questions, with the preclinical investigators with the expertise to answer those questions. So in that way, we want to enable new research connections, new research collaborations, and through the support of ACCESS, we have funding to support 10 collaborations in this initial 2 years. So this is really the vision in a cartoon, and where we see the PCMM network is right here. Matching the clinician researcher or preclinical investigator with an important clinical problem, with the expert who has the understanding and the technologies and the expertise to address that problem. And in some centers in Canada, this match happens organically. But even in the largest centers in Canada, there's really only so many experts that are locally available. So what we thought, what the Rare Diseases Models and Mechanisms Network did really, really well was to create a registry of hundreds of researchers, and therefore not restrict the clinician or preclinical investigator to the local expertise, but broaden that to national and international experts. And then once that match is made, in this case, this cartoon is indicating that a clinician investigator has maybe a difficult to treat leukemia. They've approached now a preclinical investigator who has expertise in that area. That preclinical investigator in this specific case can look at various targeted therapies against that specific tumor and hopefully translate that to the clinic. So I made a brief mention of where this started, and it was initiated in the C17 Developmental Therapeutics Committee, a preclinical working group there. And we were very fortunate very early on to collaborate with the Rare Diseases Models and Mechanisms Network. And then very early on, through Jason and Donna Sandler, we were able to broaden our collaboration to include Profiles Model Systems node. We received some funding locally from the Academy of Translational Medicine. Of course, ACCESS, new national consortium ACCESS, their cancer biology theme, put this forward for funding to enable new collaborations. And we benefited greatly from two resources to engage persons with lived experience. And now, of course, ACCESS has a Persons with Lived Experience network, and we're engaged with that as well. So we have set up for the PCMM network a governance and scientific oversight committee. And this committee will be responsible for the coordination, accountability, and administration of the network. And what that means practically is that this committee will make sure that the network is supporting the types of projects that align with the vision of the network and align with the vision of ACCESS. And what we hoped for when we were designing this committee was to really get a diversity of expertise and to have a committee that reflects the network, that reflects the diversity of the network. So not only geographical diversity, but expertise diversity, lived experience diversity. So you can see the geographic diversity on this map, but I'll highlight, expertise goes from bioinformatics to biorepositories to high content screening to model systems. We have lived experience from PhD trainees to research directors. We have 2 cancer survivors. We have a leader of a childhood cancer foundation and mother with lived experience. We have, as I mentioned, a PhD trainee, assistant, associate, full professors. So what has been extraordinarily satisfying is that every one of these persons, when contacted, were highly engaged and enthusiastic about participating in the committee and have been highly engaged in the committee. So I'm really confident that with their oversight that the PCMM network is going to accomplish some great things. So this is just an overview, a cartoon of the process of the network, and you can find this on the homepage of the website that I'll take you through in a moment. But first, I'll take you through this cartoon. So in the top left, it's a picture of a preclinical researcher who has visited registry.pcmnetwork.ca to register in the network, and I'll take you through what that process is going to be. So by registering in the network, what that researcher will do, and what we will have done, is expand an already established network of about 1,300 model systems, rare disease researchers, established first by the RDMF Canada. So they've got about 770 researchers, and that's now expanded internationally to Australia, Singapore, and Japan. So by registering, the researcher's expertise will be searchable by all these other researchers. There's extraordinary collaborations possibilities there. And it will be searchable by the bioinformatics core, which will help us identify the expert that is most qualified to address the submitted research question. So I'll take you through this, but basically what if you're a preclinical researcher, what we would really highly encourage you to do, even if you haven't done pediatric cancer research, but you're interested in pediatric cancer research, or you're interested in supporting pediatric cancer research, I would highly encourage you to register for the network. So you will click on this link. This is my profile. It'll take you, once you establish a email and password, it'll take you to a home page that will explain to you what the PCMM registry will be doing, and that is it will be collecting information about your expertise. And this information will be searchable by the bioinformatics core, but it can also be searchable publicly, and I'll show you that in a moment. It'll give you some information of documentation and frequently asked questions. And then you can go to your profile, put in your basic information, your contact information, and then a little blurb about your research. And I'll take you through some of the other information that you'll select. But But all of this information will be searchable by the bioinformatics core. So all the words that you put in about your research will be searchable when the PCMM network is looking to find an expert to match with the research question. You can choose the tumor tissues that you've worked with. You can choose the research technologies that you have expertise in, the research models that you've worked with. And this is a little bit more specialized information for the scientists on the call. You can choose the genes that you have expertise in and the gene network, the gene pathways that your research is involved in. And then to help with the evaluation of matches, you can put in some links to some publications that are going to help the bioinformatic core or the government scientific oversight committee evaluate different experts for a specific research question. Then you can select your privacy level. So myself, I share information to the public, so it's publicly searchable, and you can share it with a partner registry. So what that allows you to do, so this is a search internally, but this is the same search for the public, is public researchers or anybody across the world can explore those 1,300 experts registered in the RDMM, International RDMM Network, or in the PCMM Network. And for instance, if you use a pretty broad term like cancer, what you'll end up getting is the members of the PCMM Network who have used the word cancer within their research interests. I'll mention that we beta tested this registry with some researchers, but today and moving forward, we will start engaging more broadly at the various research institutes across Canada to really populate the PCMM registry. And then you also get all the researchers from partner organizations from around the world who have identified cancer as an area of expertise for their research. So it's a very powerful tool. I've used it myself to identify potential collaborators for genes that my lab has an interest in, because it's not always so clear, especially if you identify a novel gene that's new to your lab. You can search this network to find people that have expertise in that may have interest in collaborating. So that registration process shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. And importantly, you must be registered in the PCMM to receive funding from the network, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So now we'll move down to this corner of the graphic, and that is a clinical or preclinical investigator that has an important research question that has potential to impact the lives and well-being of kids with cancer. So what we ask of these individuals is to complete an application form, and I'll take you to that in a moment. And then once you've completed that application form, to email it to info@pcmmmnetwork.ca. So this is how you'll submit a research inquiry. So we'll take you to the homepage of the PCMM network. There's a couple clicks here. This will take you to the registry. This will take you to the submit a preclinical question, but that's basically just right now a link to an email address. What you want to maybe do is go down to the bottom here, and these are all the appendices. And we have been working really hard to translate these appendices from English to French, and we are getting there, but we're not yet there. But we should have that in the next couple of weeks. But you just click here for an application form. It'll give you a little bit of information about the different categories of research questions, prioritized categories, and I'll give you some examples of that in a few slides. tell you a bit about the evaluation criteria um, that these research questions will be evaluated by the members of the Governance and Scientific Oversight Committee. Basically, the first filter will be its alignment with the vision of the network, and this is how we will evaluate that. And then submit a two-page application. We don't want it to be onerous, but we want it to be detailed enough that we can really make informed decisions about the project and the project's alignment with the vision of the network. So a brief lay description, considerations of sex and gender, considerations of the population of interest, discussions of the benefits of the proposed research, of answering the proposed research question, how likely it is to have an impact on therapy and its feasibility. So again, not designed to be onerous, but designed to be informative, to allow us to evaluate it and move it forward or not. And I'll mention this in a few slides as well. We have embedded in the process one step of feedback to the submitting investigator. We don't want continuous revisions, but we will provide the submitting investigator with feedback and the opportunity to address that feedback one time. So there will be periodic calls for applications. Currently, the plan is to fund 4 applications with the date of July 1st or July 15th for receiving the application forms, and then to fund those first four applications, and then as a oversight committee meet and discuss the process, do a deep dive into the process and into the types of applications that we have funded, and make sure that aligns with the vision, and make whatever modifications are needed to then have 2 subsequent competitions where we'll fund 3 applications for a total of 10 in the first 2 years, but that is actually in the next 18 months. So once I want to take you through a little bit of the process of how these applications are going to be evaluated once they're received. So this is a little flow chart, and this is also available on that PCMM Network homepage. But we will receive the application via email, completion of that 2-page application form. We will require that those applications either have ethics or ethics is in progress. That application will go to the Governance, Scientific and Oversight Committee. And as I mentioned, that committee has geographic diversity, but also diversity in expertise and diversity in lived experience. So persons with lived experience, to really have a fulsome discussion of how that application aligns with the vision of the network. An application that may not align with the vision will be given feedback and have the opportunity to revise once and resubmit. An application that aligns will move to the PCMM registry, to the bioinformatics core, to identify researchers that might have the expertise needed to answer that question. And I should note here that in the application form, I didn't go through it, but in the second page, you have an opportunity to identify a researcher that may have the expertise. So as an applicant, you can provide the GSOC with some direction, but the decision will be independent of that suggestion. So the application is approved by the GSOC. It goes to the bioinformatics core, and there are some experts that are identified. Those experts will then be notified and asked if they have an interest in supporting this research question, and I'll take you through that process in the next slide. And after those experts agree, they will submit a short scientific application that will undergo a review process. They'll come back, those reviews will come back to the GSOC, and the funding decision will be made. So this slide just reiterates that once an inquiry has been submitted and reviewed, the bioinformatics core will identify potential partners, and the government scientific the GSOC will contact those potential partners and ask if they would be interested in submitting a 2-page proposal, 1-page project summary, or 1 page with deliverables and expected budget. Alternatively, as I mentioned, the person who submits the initial proposal has the opportunity to identify potential partners. So what are the prioritized areas? What are the areas that align with the vision of the PCMM network? And we've come up with 3 prioritized areas, and as you saw on the application form, there's some details about that. But I thought that maybe I would show graphically or pictorially what are some prioritized areas of research that the PCMM network will support or may support. The first is developmental therapeutics, and this is a very exciting project that has been developed by the National Profile Initiative. This is a patient adolescent patient that had a rare tumor that was progressive and had undergone genomic sequencing and had received a targeted therapy and progressed some more. And samples were available throughout this patient's history, and those samples were made available to the Profile Model Systems node. So this is a national collaboration of many sites that include BC Children's Hospital, McGill, CHEO, Calgary, for instance. So some of these samples were sent to BC, where James Lim made patient-derived xenografts in chicken embryos. Some of the samples were shared with Ottawa. Jason Perman's group made patient-derived xenografts in zebrafish. Donna Singer's group did the same in Calgary and McGill in the mouse. And then samples were also shared in BC, where Philip Longate's group did bioinformatics, did proteomics to do biomarker discovery. So each of those steps are a critical step that could potentially be funded by the PCMM network. But in this case, the project progressed further, and researchers here at BC Children's, there is a repurposed drug, antidepressant that was identified as a potential novel therapy, and researchers here at BC Children's, Seth Parker's group, showed that some of these xenografts had a response to this novel drug. Same was shown in McGill and in CHEO, and James's group here at Children's also showed it in the chicken xenograft. Then those results were shared with the Profile Molecular Tumor Board and shared with the patient, and the patient made a decision to try the therapy as a monotherapy for a few months, and there seems to have been a response, but there was progressive disease, and that therapy stopped. But each of these pathways, from tissue to model to new therapy, testing new therapy, each of these nodes could be potentially funded through the PCMM network. Another example of research that may be funded through the network is from here in BC. So in this case, the biobank in BC had matched samples, diagnostic and relapse samples for a number of patients that had childhood leukemia, BALL. These samples underwent genomic testing, and for the changes or conservation of mutations through disease progression. Those mutations or that pattern of mutation was compared with publicly available data set at St. Jude's Hospital. Some of those samples underwent proteome analysis to identify biomarkers, to discover biomarkers that may be targeted. One was PARP1 as a change that occurred in the diagnostic sample and also was retained in the relapse sample. And then we tested novel inhibitors, PARP inhibitors against these matched samples and saw similar responses. So this type of research would also be potentially supported through the PCMM network. A final type of research that might be supported is it's characterized here, functionalization of variants. So in this case, this is functionalization of mutations or changes that occur in a gene called BRCA1, BRCA1, which is associated with hereditary cancers. And in this case, using a marker for loss of function, which is the loss of the ability to orient cell divisions, as an indicator for the pathogenicity of those variants. And I just caught myself reflecting on how inaccessible that language is potentially to people there without scientific background. There's a lot of specialized terminology. So I'll remind you that if my inability to communicate due to the use of acronyms or specialized language, please visit that glossary and write down those terms so that researchers like myself can be informed on how to do a better job in communicating, and also so that your peers can gain from the knowledge of what these terms mean. So I think that's pretty much the end of my presentation, but I'd really like to encourage researchers out there with expertise in some of these areas. It doesn't have to be in all those areas. Doesn't even have to be in pediatric cancer, but we would really love to collect your expertise. And if you could take 10 minutes out of your time and visit this registry and register, there are some benefits beyond potential new collaborations funded through PCMM. There's benefits for new collaborations and opportunities for new connections. And if you are thinking right now that you have an important clinical question, but you just don't know necessarily who the right expert is, or who has the technology or expertise to help you address that research question, we highly encourage you to visit the PCMMnetwork.ca to download an application form and email it to info@pcmmnetwork.ca. There will be dates listed on the network. I think currently first application deadline for applications is listed as July 1st, but we might push that to July 15th. But we are hoping in July to make decisions to fund for new connections, for new collaborations through the PCMM network. And this is the final slide. So again, if you have interest, please visit the website. Please visit the registry if you'd like to register. Please visit the registry if you'd like to search to find experts with specific expertise in technologies or in genes or in. And if you have any questions, please reach out through those two emails, which are also on the website under contact.